You know that sound, right? The sharp click of the striker hitting the coin, the smooth glide across the board. For so many of us, carom is just a simple game we played growing up. But what if I told you that behind that board, there's this whole complex world of professional competition?
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does somebody actually make a living playing carom? I mean, if you're picturing big private sponsorships, huge TV deals, the way it works in other sports, well, you're going to have to think again. The real answer is way more structured, and honestly, it's pretty surprising.
Yup, the secret sauce, the actual financial bedrock for professional carom in South Asia, is the government. In this world, the state isn't just making the rules. It's the number one employer, the main sponsor, and the biggest benefactor, all rolled into one. So how on earth does a system like that actually work? Let's dive in. Okay, our first stop has to be India. It's really the heart of the carom world, both historically and today. And India has developed this totally unique model where it doesn't just give athletes prize money, it literally hires them and makes them part of the state itself. It really all kicked off with two key decisions. Back in 1970, the government gave carom official recognition as a national sport. That was big. But the real game changer, that came in 1991, when carom was added to something called the sports quota. This meant that if you were a top player, you could get a permanent, stable government job with a pension. All of a sudden, being good with a striker was a direct ticket to a lifelong career. And this created what's known as the Quota Award Pension Triad. It's a pretty brilliant three-part system. The quota gets you in the door with a job. National honors, like the famous Arjuna Award, bring you status and usually some cash bonuses. And the pension, well, that takes care of you long after you've stopped competing. It's basically a cradle-to-grave support system for the country's best players. And just look at who's doing the hiring. We're not talking small departments here. These are the titans of the Indian economy. State-owned oil and gas giants, the National Insurance Company, even the Reserve Bank of India, their central bank. And these aren't just symbolic jobs either. Take Rashmi Kumari, one of the greatest players of all time. She's a chief manager in HR. The state is literally giving these athletes a real corporate career that runs parallel to their sporting one. Now, let's hop across the water to Sri Lanka. The government is also the main backer there, but the model they use is completely different. Over there, carom champions aren't climbing the corporate ladder. They're moving up the chain of command in the armed forces. I mean, the contrast here is just wild. While an Indian player might become an executive at a bank, a Sri Lankan player becomes a soldier, a sailor, or an airman. They get their salary, their benefits, their pension, all from the defense budget. And what's their official duty? Their service to the nation is to train for carom competitions and win. And you can see it in the ranks. You've got world champion Nushanta Fernando, who's an able seaman in the Navy. The national champ Kavindi TGT is an aircraft woman in the Air Force. So when they win a medal, it's not just a personal victory. It's an official win for the Navy or the Air Force. In Sri Lanka, enlisting in the military is the career path for a professional athlete. Okay, for our third model, we're heading to the Maldives. This is a newer approach, and it's much more strategic. Here, the government's investment in carom isn't just about supporting players. It's about using the sport as a tool for national branding. A kind of diplomatic soft power. So the Maldives has this three-part playbook. First, the president gets personally involved, giving out the highest national awards to Karakum legends. Second, they spend big money. We're talking over 1 million rupiah, that's about 65,000 US dollars, for just one event, to host huge international tournaments. And third, they've set up a special fund just to cover their athletes' expenses. It's this all-in strategy to raise the country's profile on the world stage, all through Karakum. So we've looked at 3 different ways the state supports carom. But inside all these systems, there's this really interesting tension, a battle between 2 very different kinds of rewards. The steady security of a job versus the incredible thrill of a life-changing jackpot. 1 crore. That is 10 million rupees. It's over 100,000 US dollars. That was the cash prize that just one Indian state government gave to a World Cup winner back in 2024. This right here is the jackpot model, a massive one-time payment that can literally change a player's life in an instant. But then you have this. Just a year later, another World Cup champion, Elle Kirtana, who won not 1 but 3 gold medals, had to go public with a plea. After all that success, what was she asking for? Not a jackpot,
She was asking for the basics, a stable government job and a house.
And this stark contrast is what's been called the Kirthana dilemma. It's the core conflict that so many athletes in this system face. Do you hold out hope for that massive but totally unpredictable jackpot? Or do you go for the long-term security of a government job that'll still be there long after the cheering stops?
So it really boils down to two competing ideas. On one side, you have the stable job offered by a state company or the military. It's predictable, it's secure. On the other side, you have the big cash grants. They can be absolutely life-changing, for sure, but they're also inconsistent. Getting one can depend on politics, on timing, really on who's paying attention at the exact moment you win. When you look at all of this, you realize just how deeply the state is woven into the very fabric of this sport. It's providing the careers, the pensions, the awards, even a sense of national pride. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. When the state is the main employer, the main sponsor, and the biggest fan, who really owns the game?